Hello, and welcome to Tales from the Trunk, reading the stories that did make it. I'm Hillary B. Bisniaks. Listeners, I'm so excited to welcome back author, podcaster, just general fabulous person, RJ Theodore. Rekka, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you for having me back. It's wonderful to be here again.
Yeah, absolutely. Last time we were here, we were talking about Cast Off, which is the as yet still unpublished fourth book?
Third book, yes. It's
Third
a trilogy.
book in the Peridot Shift. And we're here today to talk about Flotsam, which has a second edition re-release coming out. I don't know, time is fake. It comes out very, very close to the release of this episode.
Yes, it will be out February 1st, and it is being re-released. Yeah, and the irony is that last time I was reading from Cast Off as my trunk story, but it will come out later this year. I'm going to rapid release the entire trilogy. Flotsam and Book 2 Salvage are second editions, and Cast Off was never released before, and it will be finally out in the world this year.
I am so excited. And those are coming out from Dinosaur Press?
Yes, which is a collective, so it's still technically self-publishing, but it is part of a group of self-publishers who are working together in a really collaborative and wonderful, warm way.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, but suffice to say, listeners will recognize a number of the other collaborators from that collective as previous guests of this show as well.
Yes, it's almost as if we are all friends somehow behind the scenes, yes.
Weird how that happens.
You attract a certain type of person, and all those people are wonderful and love to support each other.
Yes, we love to see it. So, you're going to be reading out of Chapter 11 of Flotsam. Is there anything we need to know before we get into this reading?
Just that our main characters have already attempted to fulfill one contract, and they pulled up a ring out of the garbage layer of Flotsam's strange open-air world, and that didn't work out. Their original contract did not finish. So now they have this ring, and they desperately need to sell it.
Fantastic.
Okay, Chapter 11. The Docked Tail was as disreputable a place as any establishment in Sabrosa that dared to call itself a restaurant. As though the food were not an afterthought to the watered-down ale served to sullen patrons at the long ring-stained bar. One could, and did, count on poor service and little attention if they sat in the dimly lit booths along the far wall, across the expanse of wobbly-legged tables that customers ignored entirely. Patrons either came for the drink and wallowed at the bar, or came for the relative privacy and wallowed in the shadows. You certainly did not come for the cuisine. The walk there calmed Talus's jangled nerves to some degree. She still felt the chill of horror at Jasper's death, but her heartbeat steadied and her mind cleared a bit with each step. This was not, she told herself, entirely unexpected. All the islands had their industries. Sabrosa's primary export was trouble, and there was little reason to be as nonplussed by it as she'd allowed herself to become. Trouble was a long-standing partner of hers. It was not her master. Talus slid into the empty seat of a booth opposite a slim, brown-skinned cuttered man with a precision-edged goatee and mustache. He was dressed down in blue twill cotton jacket, the primary feature of which was an oversized hood, which he now wore pushed back, freeing carefully groomed hair that fell in loose curls to his shoulders, along with 5 of the smoothest prayer locks Talus had ever seen. Fingerless kid-skin gloves revealed blue-painted nails and a series of tattoos down each finger. Enough to show they were tattooed, not enough to see what the designs were, but Talus already knew. "I see you got your set finished, Talbot," she said, signaling to the bartender to bring them around. There was already a full mug of the pitifully pale ale in front of Talbot. The refill was a courtesy. He held up his hands between them and splayed the fingers, as if admiring the inkwork through the gloves. The alchemical sigils that strategically marked the backs of his hands, down to just above the bed of each fingernail, had cost him a small fortune. He was not the type to avoid dealing with alchemists if it gave him a shortcut to his heart's desires. I did. Just got back yesterday, matter of fact. You would have missed me had you come any earlier, you know. Lucky me. Try them out yet? Talbot wiggled his fingers, connecting first his thumb and forefinger, then thumb and middle, and so on to his pinky. I gave it a go. He raised the mug of ale to his lips to draw out his tale. She raised her eyebrows as a prompt. Hard to say, really, he admitted, when he replaced the mug into its condensation ring on the discolored table. When your fingers are as light as mine to start. She laughed. You were had. His amiable smile soured at her jest. This was the alchemist that helped me transition. They know their stuff. Talbot was not among those who would go anything short of all the way. While others transitioned through surgery or prayed long years for the intervention of one of Peridot's gods, he had gone to a bone alchemist and seen to the process in the most thorough manner. Try something tougher then, she suggested, not wanting to put his mood off before she got what she came for. Maybe the dock officer's safes? Nah, I've done them. He looked thoughtful for a moment. You're right, though. Need me a challenge to know properly. Wait until they're right healed. Fingers swelled up like corpses under the needle, and they still sting. She nodded, though the corner of her eye tweaked in sympathy. You'll have plenty of chances, no doubt. Somehow folks keep walking around with heavy purses, however often you keep relieving them of the weight. His famous smile flashed, white teeth set with emeralds. Drinking overpriced, half-watered ale at least didn't stain like the dark stout Talus would have preferred. Sparkling green emeralds winked in the center of Talbot's incisors, even in the low light. He'd spent as much money on his looks as on his tattoos, especially after he finished his transition and finally felt at home in his bones. Everyone had some interest that they'd tossed money into Flotsam for, she figured, and couldn't help but wonder if he'd skipped any necessary maintenance on his ship in pursuit of beauty. With Talbot's mood restored and a fresh pair of ales delivered to the table, Talus leaned forward to get to business. The bar was quiet this morning, and, with no music, she felt as though her voice carried farther than she'd like. Probably her nerves. But Sub Rosa was never what she'd call quiet. This afternoon, it was eerily so. Talbot held up a hand before she could speak, though. His grin had lost some luster. I know what you're here to propose, he said. He cast a glance around the barroom at the other patrons. One other booth, its occupant slumped and asleep. 3 men at the bar, backs hunched and noses inches from the tops of their steins. The bartender studiously wiping glasses with a discolored cotton rag, trained on his work. All inattentive demeanors, either sincere or practiced. Talbot leaned toward Talus. Their foreheads nearly touched over the center of the table. Word is around you're trying to sell something the wrong people want. He didn't ask to see it, or about it, just knew. All she'd said was that he should meet her at the bar, but he knew everything, like she'd proposed it all right there in her message to him. That's a bad item you got. He licked his lips and polished off the first mug of ale. Anyone pays you for that, and it's going to wind up taken from them, and them out the price. Lucky if that's all they're short at the end of it. Talus put her hands up, a non-threatening gesture. Hey now, since when do we take things other people aren't trying to relieve us of? That's the business. Talbot shook his head. What do you mean, no? You want to test that ink work, but here you won't cargo a stolen item. Out of Sub Rosa. She laughed in disbelief. I'd find more nerve on Silver Isles than I'm finding here. You even know what I'm asking you to carry? A tiny bit of nothing, except to the right buyer. I don't need to know what it is. I know it's drenched in problems. The authority that had chased me down for it isn't one I'm going out of my way to invite aboard. Talus couldn't believe what she was hearing. Didn't like the feeling that settled into the bottom of her stomach, cold and hard, like she'd swallowed a cannonball. Here she was, so close to what ought to be a payday she could roll around in properly, but coming up with nothing but dead ends. She couldn't afford dead ends. The original contract to fetch this thing was a half-fortune. I can't walk away from that. I spent money and time, risked my neck on fetching it, made promises to my crew, put off repairs on my ship to fund the salvage. I need a buyer. Talbot thumbed one side of his thin mustache. He looked contrite, but refused to say what she wanted to hear. Tallis, you and me, we have a long-standing business history. But as a friend, I'm telling you to shed that thing. Put it in the nearest bin, or dump it out in the skies, whatever. But you want to be done with it. Go and scrape up some more honest contraband. She pursed her lips at him, then blew a short blast of disgusted air. Subthrosa's thieves have gone coward. Talbot put a hand on hers. He seemed to want to say more, but she pulled away and stood. She should stay. Get another cargo from him. Get some news from around. There was always something to talk about here. Hells, maybe persuade him to give her a loan. But between the dagger-point feeling in her gut and the panic in her mind, she needed to move. Wanted to be far away. Alone. Thanks for the drink, she said, giving him one last angry stare, childishly putting her problems on him for the moment. She willed him to change his mind. Hey now, I thought you were buying. Can't spare the coin. I'm broke till I sell this thing. He made a face at her, but didn't say another word when she turned and stalked out of the dingy pub.
Whew. I love some wheeling and dealing.
Yeah, that's a scene that's been in that book through all the drafts. Yeah. Talbot not giving Tallis what she wants.
And if I remember, Talbot is kind of our favorite garbage person.
Oh, no, that's Hancock.
Oh, that's Hancock. That's right.
Hancock is the one we want to yeet directly into the sun. Absolutely. She does meet Hancock a couple scenes from there, but yeah, that's Talbot's a good kid. Just
nice.
Just not cooperative at the moment.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Yeah, but he does help out later in other books. So yeah, no shame on Talbot. All the shame for Hancock.
Excellent.
Hancock has a club against it's the We Hate Hancock Club. It's almost formally organized at this point.
Well, I'm very excited to get to read more about Hancock being garbage.
He will provide, don't worry.
Excellent. So, one of the questions I really enjoy asking, because this is still Tales from the Trunk, is, are there any parts of this book that I know has been out for a couple of years now in various editions, that you really liked but ended up having to cut?
Oh yeah. The original draft of Flotsam was one of those drafts that I kept revisiting every NaNoWriMo, and I don't think I deleted anything for about 6 years, so it just kept getting more and more bloated, and I tried to entertain more and more thoughts. Oh, what if this? What if this? And I've been complimented on the world building of Flotsam. If you read that last version before I actually set it aside and rewrote the thing entirely, you would probably not compliment me on my world building. You would say, oh my God, let me out. But there are a lot of neat things about the world. As I tried to describe at the beginning, Peridot is broken. The gods decided that they were going to perform this alchemical rite to make themselves gods. Before that, they were just, mortals practicing alchemy. And in becoming gods, they broke the planet. And then they decided not to put it all back together again, but just kind of like stop the explosion in midair, and then everybody could just live on that. So that's the weirdness that is Peridot. And as a result, there are these little chunks of island set up kind of like lighthouses, and instead of constructed lighthouses with mechanical lights, they are iridescent. I mean, everything is always iridescent in my books, but glowing pumpkins, giant pumpkins on a vine, and they're gaseous, and they float.
Cool.
So they're tethered down to these islands, kept on the vine while they ripen, and then tended by what I call glow keepers. And so, in one version of Flotsam, Tallis was serving sentence for some crime as a glow keeper. It was a civil service, and so she had to do like 5 or 10 years or whatever it was serving on this Glowkeeper Island. And I always miss that scene. You know, it was sort of like a sustenance garden where, like, there were sheep, there were other meal, like, there were always tasks to do, always things to take care of. And I do miss that scene. There was a version of Flotsam that was a webcomic, and so I actually drew that scene out.
Oh,
and
fun.
I wish I liked it just a little bit more, that I could use it as like a side story, bonus content or something. But the artwork, if I go back to it, you know, I can't stand looking at it, so it's probably never going to see the light of day. But it is out there, so
Yeah.
so that's definitely something.
Happens.
That is exactly the sort of thing you were asking for, the trunked thing that was precious to me, that I wish could exist again in some way. I actually have always planned on writing little side stories, and that was one I was going to steal and recast and use as just like a side story, shared universe kind of thing.
Nice. That, I really appreciate the moments of pastoralness that some authors work into their worlds that are otherwise, you know, maybe not so pastoral.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a whole scene of Talus just mending things, you know, like knitting, you know, she had like a spool of thread, and she was waiting for a delivery so she could get this other thing, and then it came in, so she had glue, and now she could patch the canvas that tethered the glow pumpkin down, and
That sounds very soothing.
Yeah, it was just that sort of like no conflict kind of scene, which of course ended in giant conflict, but
Right.
For the moment it was beautiful and calm and soothing.
So, before we talk about what things you love from this book that actually made it in, I did want to take another moment to talk about the Robot Dinosaur Press Collective.
Yeah, it's part of the Chipped Cup Collective.
Part of
Robot
the
Dinosaur
Chipped Cup
Press is an
Collective.
imprint. Yeah, the sci-fi fiction, the fantasy, and the horror is all under Robot Dinosaur.
And there's also a romance imprint under that.
Yes, Latte Literary. So if you're looking for any level of romance that is kind of, you know, primary to the book, that will fall under that category. So there's something for everyone. I think they were just talking about somebody had some erotica they were going to put in. Other people just have cozy romance. And so it's all under the Latte name.
Yeah. And among the contributors to this overall Chipped Cup Collective, we have you, obviously.
Yes.
We have our very own Merc Fenn Wolfmoor,
Yep.
whose work we featured recently.
Yes.
At this past October, November. Time is fake.
What is time? But yeah, Merc's Robot Dinosaur anthology is kind of where the name came from. Not kind of. It's absolutely where the name came from for the press. And I think at some point Merc is planning to finish up the Robot Dinosaur work and publish that anthology under the press too. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I am definitely looking forward to that as well. And also, friend of the show, Sarah Loch, is publishing under the Latte Literary side.
Yes, yeah. It's everyone you know and love from Trunkcast.
Yep, pretty much. And I know that you have done some work also with Robot Dinosaur from the production side. Your best related work eligible formatting guidelines.
Yes, I did the formatting guidelines. I wrote that out for the press. And then was like, this is useful for people for some reason. I forget sometimes that I have expertise that other people don't. So I do have that available. If you go to rjtheodore.com, you can actually get a copy for yourself that's not, you know, press Robot Dinosaur related. I stripped all that out for the most part.
It is, you know, whether you are self-publishing only, hybrid, anything in between, I think that knowing a little bit or having this resource in your back pocket is super great.
Yeah, I want everything to be easy for everybody. The world has been difficult enough. We don't need to make anything else, like, proprietary and,
absolutely
keep it to ourselves.
Yeah. So, with that, I'd love to know what your favorite part, without giving away too much, you got to keep in throughout all of these bloating and rewriting nano drafts.
Well, it's funny. One of my early editors on Flotsam, under Parvus Press, talked me into, in the first edition, making the crew a little bit contentious with each other. Mm-hmm. And that always kind of bugged me in that sort of Joss Whedon, like, why do we have to be grumpy? Sort of thing. And so I was told by this editor, you have a choice. They can either get along with your captain and just be there to make her look cool, or they can be part of the cast and not always agree with her. But, which of course is true. I mean, people don't always agree with each other. That part wasn't bad advice. But I was pushed to really make dinner time awkward, like when you go home to family. And that was something I never really liked doing. So I'm really glad in the second edition that I could back off on a lot of that. Talus in the last version utilized some what do you want to call it? Psychological techniques. It's just negging, basically, to get her crew to do what she wanted. And I stripped that right out for this edition. And I'm really glad, because it was never my intention that this found family be nasty to each other or anything like that. So everyone still has their own wants, needs, desires, and goals, of course, and they don't always comply with each other's. But now there's no reason for people to be mean to each other, and I'm glad.
Yeah, we love to see that.
Exactly. Like, what, as I said, I don't want the world to be any more difficult than it already is. So in my story, queer is norm. Families can be good to each other. Friends can be supportive. And we can have those moments, even if it's in a side story that I write, that's related to the world, where everything is calm and quiet and pleasant.
Yeah. That is very nice to hear. And, there's been some discussion, I think, recently around sort of the Whedonification of genre for a while.
I mean, there's snappy dialogue is one thing.
Yeah.
But being nasty to people who love you is unnecessary.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
absolutely.
As we said earlier, if you want somebody to hate in this book, you have Kirk.
Yeah.
So he covers all those bases. He is the cishet white male that, we needed to direct some frustration at. What's really great about Kirk is he acts like a villain, but he actually is not like the big bad. So it's just really nice to hate on him, to wave your fist at him as you read, but also know that he's like not the big powerful person that he thinks he is.
Right. And
by the end he knows it.
Very good. Very good. And I was just going to say also that, like, just because Joss Whedon put snappy dialogue sort of on the map doesn't mean that he has a,
he was
other
not
people
the first
have been
person
snappy,
to do it. Yeah.
Have been writing snappy dialogue before him, and we will keep writing snappy dialogue long after he is a distant...
Forgotten.
Yeah.
Yes.
Distant half memory. Oh yeah, wasn't there that guy?
Yeah, which is funny because, as far as comps go, Firefly is one of my big comps. I'd already written Flotsam, and someone said, oh, this is a lot like Firefly. And I was like, I've never heard of this. And I went and checked out Firefly. And of course, in the time, we thought this was great. And I fell in love with it. I had to buy the box set of the DVDs at the time because that was the only way to find it. There was no streaming at the time. And I spent, probably 4 hours one afternoon driving around trying to find this. And that was, at the time, a great compliment, that this is like Firefly.
Mm-hmm.
I would hope now that you would say, oh, this replaces Firefly in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
Because, that, I think we all know that Firefly is getting stale, moldy, and needs to exist only in the time that it was created and not be held up as a beacon of what writing should be in sci-fi.
Yeah.
But that feeling of like that sort of found family that he almost nailed, the feeling of the ship is our home, and hopefully some shenanigans. I mean, that's what you're going to get from Flotsam, only with stripping out Joss Whedon's problematic attitude toward, minorities and marginalized people.
If I might suggest a better and more complimentary comp title, I would say that Becky Chambers' Wanderers.
Yes. Yeah, that is a more recent comp title, and being a book is actually more useful.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely replaced Joss Whedon.
Yeah. And listeners, if you're looking for found family on spaceships with sort of cozy, some things happen, but we want to keep the family together type thing, Becky Chambers is a great stop on your way. Yeah,
you can start with A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, and I also love the variety of aliens in those stories too, and that's kind of similar to what I've got going on as well, even if mine doesn't technically take place in space, although it kind of does later in the later book. So, figure out how a magic world, a world held together by magic, manages to put their airships out of atmosphere is that's something I had to kind of play around with, and I was looking forward to that. So that happens in Cast Off. There's a little secret for you. Nobody knows that yet.
You heard it here, folks.
Yes.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yes. Always with the expose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What a scoop.
Yeah.
So before we go, a couple of questions about you. Mm-hmm. One, do you have anything coming out that you want folks to know about other than Flotsam?
Yes. So on Flotsam's book birthday, by magical happenstance, I will also have a story out from Fireside. I will be the cover story, apparently, for the issue coming out on February 1st. So, I guess February 1st, I will also have a story out. And that is called Oversharing. And that is actually a flash horror story. A little bit of body horror.
Ooh.
Yeah. Apparently that's the thing that I'm going to be known for soon. Because I like, when I write my short stories, I do enjoy a bit of horror, and body horror especially.
Fantastic.
I have a strange relationship with my body and my health right now, and that's coming out through the short story writing for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, well, I just finished reading Caitlin Starling's The Death of Jane Lawrence, so I'm in a body horror mood right now.
Oh, good. So you will have a little bit of a snack for for continuing that. That one's on my list. I haven't gotten to it yet, but yeah, Death of Jane Lawrence is definitely high on my TBR right now. Just got to get to it. I've been working so hard that my reading time has unfortunately been a little bit, I don't want to say sapped, but definitely murdered in some way.
Reduced.
Yeah, reduced.
Yeah, my attention for reading is sometimes a little bit difficult, even in the best of times. So I would definitely recommend Jane. I would caution you if your reading time is normally right before bed, just to be aware that...
Oh, no, I don't read Caitlin Starling before bed. No, she scares me. So I would probably read her stuff, like early afternoon. Go get another cup of coffee, sit down, convince the dog to take a nap, and do some reading. Which was also my video game time And I will admit that I loaded 3 days ago Animal Crossing back into the Switch in an attempt to convince myself to play over the weekend, and then I worked like straight till bedtime on Saturday. And
Bummer.
then, yeah, so I'm going to shame myself on Tuesday night when my partner goes to play Smash Brothers with friends. He's got a standing, play date on Tuesday nights, and when he takes out Animal Crossing and goes, "Wait, when did you put in Animal Crossing?" And then I will have to admit that I put it into play and then did not do so.
Oh no.
Yeah, but soon I will have rest time.
Yes.
As soon as Flotsam's files are submitted and everybody's got everything they need, I'm hoping to take at least like a solid actual week off.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to hearing more about that from you. And in addition to what do you have coming out, is there anything that you've been consuming media-wise, games, shows, podcasts, anything of the sort?
I have been just obsessing over Encanto on Disney Plus. That movie is just like, we were talking about those warm moments and all that kind of thing. Now, it does have a family that has a few disagreements and such, but that's kind of the plot, so we'll forgive them. But at the end, it just rewards you for bracing yourself against some family drama. But the songs on that, Lin-Manuel Miranda does know how to make a head worm, brainworm, earworm, that's the word.
That's the one.
And the songs just will not get out of my head, but unlike Hamilton, I don't mind. Like, when I would get Hamilton songs stuck in my head, I would be, like, in misery at bedtime, trying to fall asleep, not being able to. But Encanto songs, I forgive them. I don't know why. But that movie is just beautiful, and the love that the characters do have for each other is genuine, despite how they might act towards each other when they're not thinking about, I need to act with love. But that, there's the plot. Sorry, spoilers. But it is just, I don't know. I could sit and watch it 3 times a day probably at this point and not get sick of it.
It's so good.
Yeah.
I will recommend, whether or not you speak even a single word of Japanese, the Japanese soundtrack.
Really?
Absolutely
I listened
slaps.
to the Spanish one, but I know they did they always do 16 languages or something like that. And I was thinking it'd be fun to listen to all of them and hear how the music sounds differently. That will put that one on next. Maybe I can watch the Japanese one on Disney Plus. I don't know if I can do that without changing all my settings, but that would be fun. Yeah. Yeah, Japanese is a beautiful language. I love the way the syllables hit against each other.
It is.
So I'm definitely going to follow that.
We don't talk about Bruno in Japanese. The Japanese version of We Don't Talk About Bruno might be my favorite.
I will have to check that out. Maybe I'll check it out tonight.
Excellent.
My partner is also obsessing with it, so it's the first time that we're both kind of in the mood for the same thing over and over and over again. So that's
nice.
Cool. But other than that, we've been trying to get through Supernatural and Woof. That one is a production of its times.
Oh boy, is it!
It wishes it were written by Joss Whedon. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
We are only on season 5, and I'm just like, oh my god, we have 10 more to go.
Truly, you are in double hell right now.
Yeah, literally, not just figuratively. I know people love it, so that's kind of why we've been sticking with it. But it's a lot sometimes. I will be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, finally, before we get going, where can our listeners find you elsewhere?
You can find me at rjtheodore.com, constantly posting new books to put out. I have Flotsam coming out, and then as soon as Flotsam is out, after I take that week off, I will be starting to promote Salvage, which is going to come out in July. And so, hopefully there'll be a cover reveal in mid-spring, and then we will be on our way toward finally letting Cast Off out in December. That's my plan. So, definitely check out rjtheodore.com. You can get my newsletter there. I am going to be doing a giveaway when I hit a certain metric on how many followers I have on my list. I haven't decided what that is yet, though. So go subscribe to my newsletter, because I'm going to do a giveaway of Unfettered Hexes, the actual physical book, and a physical Oracle deck with it. So if you missed out on that with the Kickstarter, I'm going to do a giveaway on my newsletter. And then also patreon.com/RJ Theodore. And Twitter, I am Bitty Bitty Zap, also on Instagram. So those are pretty much all the places that I am active.
Fantastic. And I will mention We Make Books.
Oh, yeah, so we haven't done a new episode in a while. I have one in the can to edit, and I have had a lot of trouble. My co-host and I just cannot seem to arrange our schedules to record new episodes. So honestly, We Make Books is probably fading away, but it is going to remain online, and it does have a lot of great content for people, again, who are new to the process of putting books out, whether you self-publish or you want to follow a traditional path. That's got a lot of information, and I'm not going to take that down if we go away.
Yeah,
but,
I think even if it is on definite or indefinite hiatus, that there's just a lot of great information and a lot of heart in that show.
Yeah,
I really appreciate it.
Both Kaylin and I are really passionate about what we do, so I think that does come through.
Yeah, and you've had some really great guests
yes,
in the past.
Some of the shared universe of Trunkcast and We Make Books, but also, yeah, we've tried to get professionals in whatever topic we're talking about. If we're not the professionals, then we try to get somebody who is on. And we have a great episode from the 2019 Nebulas where we interviewed all sorts of people that we encountered there, including John Scalzi. Kaylin was just in shock that I was like, I'll just go grab John Scalzi. And she's like, how do you just walk up to John Scalzi and grab him? I'm like, well, funny thing, he's human. So I'm just going to approach him and ask him if he'd like to be on it. And he said, sure. So that's how you get John Scalzi, is you just, you make yourself very convenient.
He's
for
a
him
very
to say yes
approachable
to.
person.
Yeah, he's not, he's human.
Yeah.
Everyone's human. And as
just a
long
guy.
as somebody knows they're human and you treat them like a human, it's pretty easy to have a conversation, I found. Yeah.
Yeah. I will also recommend, I know it is not technically a We Make Books, but your conversation with Jennifer Mace about murderboarding.
Yeah, we carried that one forward from an older podcast of mine. I have always had co-hosts, and having a co-host is honestly one of the things that does tend to get difficult when it comes to podcasting. So, but I like doing it. I like having a conversation. I've tried to do a podcast by myself and it ends up just like a rambly mess. So, in fact, I introduced a new podcast on my Patreon of just me. And I called it Waypoints because it specifically between two spots from my doctor's appointments that I go to. And if I don't stop by the time I get to the second one, I'm done anyway. So I can't ramble. And that is how I decided to control my rambling when I do a podcast by myself about my own process. So that was the only way to do it without a co-host. But yeah, I mean, I like to talk to people. And I do miss having the regular podcast. But I don't know what happened. Suddenly there's just no time anymore.
Yeah. Time is fake and also non-existent.
Yeah, and you can't have any.
Yeah. Well, Rekka, thank you so much for coming on the show once again. It's been such a delight. I am looking forward to being able to collect all of the Peridot books.
Yes,
on my
and they're going to be in
now.
hardcover now, which is really
God.
cool. So apparently I've made a conundrum for people because the paperback has the old cover artwork duplex printed on the inside of the cover. So the paperback is extra cool. And then also it comes in hardcover, which is extra cool, but it does not have the inside covers. So I've already been told that made it hard for someone to decide which version they wanted. So I'm thinking about maybe getting stickers printed of the old artwork to send to people that they can stick on the inside of the cover of the hardcover.
I was just going to say... El Dorado both is good .gif.
Okay, well, yes, but I'm not going to ask anyone to spend I think that comes to like $45 to buy both.
Fair enough.
At this point. But, yes, both is good, for sure. I appreciate anyone who supports me by buying both.
Well, I, as an owner of the first edition Parvus versions of your first two books, I will be buying the hardcovers since I already have that artwork.
Okay. Well, thank you for that support, too. I do appreciate that.
Of
And
course.
hey, if anybody buys, like, if they have a copy of the original and they buy a copy of the new one, and you want, like, the ebook or something, just send me an email and I will happily send you the ebook. And thanks for supporting me for the hardcover editions, because I know sometimes we want to collect the pretty thing, but we also want to sit and read on our e-reader devices. So, yeah, I'm, the nice thing about self-publishing is I can just say, here, you have that, too.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yes, and thank you for having me again. It's so wonderful to be here. And
of
nice
course.
to see another face. I miss faces, honestly.
I miss faces, too.
Yeah.
It's, like, the best part about doing an interview format show is that you just get faces all the time. Faces
are what we live for, and unfortunately, they're being doled out in small amounts these days. Hopefully, if you're like me, can't see too many faces anymore.
Yeah.
My social isolation is probably never going to end, unfortunately. So I will come on any podcast as many times as I am invited, for sure.
Well, I'll invite you on the podcast again. I heard you have a book coming out in December.
Yes, and July and December. And then hopefully I can move on to self-publish one of my other books that's in the queue. So there's going to be more content.
Fantastic. We love to hear it.
Thank you.
Tales from the Trunk is mixed and produced in beautiful Oakland, California. Our theme music is Paper Wings by Ryan Boyd. You can support the show on Patreon at patreon.com/trunkcast. All patrons of the show now get a sticker and logo button, along with show outtakes and other content that can't be found anywhere else. You can find the show on Twitter at Trunkcast, and I tweet at HBBisnieks. If you like the show, consider taking a moment to rate and review us on your preferred podcast platform. And remember, don't self-reject.